Hello, you are about to watch part 2 of my retrospective on the Halloween franchise, which I recorded with college professor and author William Burns. I also recorded this retrospective with two friends of mine, John and Chris. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to check out part 1 of this retrospective, where we talked about the first 6 Halloween movies. And in this video, we talk about Halloween H2O, Halloween Resurrection, and the 2 Rob Zombie Halloween movies. Now let's move on to Halloween H2O, which basically ignores the continuity of 4, 5, and 6, and it's a direct sequel to Halloween 1 and 2. Obviously, 3 wasn't even in continuity to begin with. So, Halloween H2O. I do like this movie a lot. At the same time, it definitely sort of reeks of that post-Scream sort of like,
and that's why I don't really care for it.
Because
I agree. Yeah.
Because like I do like the movie, but for me, and it sort of like ties back to the first one. For me, in the first one, the most compelling thing was Sam Loomis. In this, the most compelling aspect of the movie is Jamie Lee Curtis coming back as Laurie Strode, and you see her; she's really traumatized from what happened in the first one. And for me, her story was far more interesting than the story of her son and his friends and stuff like that.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I think it's a good one, but it definitely sort of reeks of that post-Scream sort of vibe to it.
Right, absolutely. The meta kind of like, winking at the audience, like, you're so aware of these tropes and everything, and just tell a story, like, just tell a compelling story. And a compelling story would have been, like you said, Jamie Lee Curtis's character and Laurie Strode dealing with all these past traumas and everything. That would have been a fascinating movie.
Yeah, a big part of that is I think the first draft, or at least the outline of it, was written from the guy who did
Kevin Williamson.
Yeah, like the whole impetus for this one was Jamie, because like she wanted to do it. She was like, let's do like a 20th anniversary one, get John to direct, and I think she wanted Kevin to write it. But then, like, the Hollywood gears started turning. Right. Yeah, John didn't want to do it.
No.
But for me, this one, if you watch, like, 1, 2, and this one, like, as, like, a trilogy, it forms a pretty solid, pretty complete story. Like, the story of Laurie Strode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Especially the ending. The ending is really cathartic if you like the franchise. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think it's a good one. Once again, though, the post-Scream vibe of the movie doesn't really work for me, and then the teenage characters, they don't do it for me. But once again, the most compelling thing is Jamie Lee Curtis. Honestly, I would argue she's better in this movie than she was in the original film.
Yeah.
But that also could be because she's older. Maybe she matured as an actress.
And also more experienced, yeah.
She was also traumatized by what happened in the first 2 films.
Right.
Yeah, she's given a little more to work with in this one.
Yeah.
Now she's got a kid. She's the principal of like this private academy.
Yeah.
She's got more as a character.
And I do want to point out, though, that in the movie, she uses a different name in the movie because apparently she faked her death.
Yeah.
And I remember watching this before and thinking, were they sort of trying to tie this in with the Thorn trilogy? Because you find out that Laurie Strode died in those movies, so, like, were they sort of trying to tie it continuity-wise?
The thing is, like, I think at one point John, her kid, says, nobody's seen Michael Myers for 20 years.
Yeah.
But the thing on top of that is that they also nod that, like, she faked her death. So I feel like it was kind of a way of, like, all right, if you liked the Thorn movies, that's how this works. She faked it, but also if you don't really give a shit about those movies, we'll just pretend they didn't happen. Yeah. So it kind of works on 2 levels.
Yeah, I do want to point out that Janet Leigh's in the movie really briefly, and actually in the Psycho car.
Yes.
And it's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember they actually start subtly playing the Psycho theme as she's walking towards.
Right. I thought that was interesting. You have like mother and daughter. It's basically like paying a tribute how like these 2 became like scream queens in history of horror.
Because Halloween kind of like did take a lot from Psycho.
Yes, it did.
Oh well, Sam Loomis was named after a character from.
Yeah. That's how far they'd harken back at this point. They were like, all right, let's like go back to the Psycho illusion and everything. Yeah.
I do want to point out that this one's directed by Steve Miner, who directed 2 of the Friday the 13th movies. 2 and 3, And he also directed Lake Placid. Unfortunately, he also directed the Day of the Dead remake, but we'll forget that happened.
Yeah, I like Steve Miner's stuff. He, if you actually look into like some of his television work, he does really good stuff. Have you guys heard of this show called Dead of Summer?
No.
This is going off a little bit, but it's this great like tribute to 80s slasher films that kind of fizzled out.
I think I heard about it, but I haven't seen it.
It was really good, and it owed a lot to Halloween too.
Right.
Like Halloween, Friday the 13th. It really went back to those kind of like classic slasher films. And it works well with this one too because it was all about like kids in this isolated place. and they have no idea what's coming, which is ironic, because like we know Michael Myers is going to show up at this point, but these kids are just totally like green to the whole thing.
Oh,
except for John.
Yeah,
John's
he's
like,
aware.
Yeah, because like his mom's been paranoid about this his whole life,
right?
And he's really pissed at her for that.
He's had to live with it for us.
Yeah, you do get a lot of really good. I think Jamie Lee Curtis and even Josh Hartnett, to a certain extent, even though he's not a great actor, at least not at this point, you still get a real sense of drama between them. Like,
I thought that was
okay,
a good movie.
you do get a real sense that this kid has he's kind of sick of his mother's bullshit.
Exactly,
while you understand why his mother has bullshit, you do feel for him a little bit.
And that reminded me of almost like a Terminator 2 aspect. You know what I mean? It was kind of a similar sort of relationship between the mother and son in Terminator 2 with this film.
Definitely.
The only difference is he's not like going out to be a war hero. He's just being aware that Michael could be still out there. And actually, here's a little bit of fact. This is going to make you laugh a little bit about my history with H2O. When I was like 5 or 6 years old, this was actually how I first got started with the franchise, because I remember going to my neighbor's house. They were telling me, "Oh, let's watch this movie." I'm like, "Okay," I didn't know what it was, and I'm like, "What the heck am I watching?" I'm like, and that's how I first got started with Halloween. But the only thing is, I did not know at that time that this was like a franchise going back to the early days, because I didn't see the first Halloween until I was 11 years old in 2004, and then this was like how I said, first got started. And I don't know what this is actually. I think the best sequel. It's my favorite one out of all of them, because it brings back Jamie Lee Curtis. It kind of ignores the other films, and like you said, it's like a trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you basically see what happened to Jamie, not Jamie, Laurie. Sorry, I don't know why I'm getting I always get Jamie Lloyd and mixed up. Anyway. It's cool to see Jamie Lee Curtis back in the character, because you see what happened to Laurie after the first two films. She was hiding, and Michael Myers was still out there looking, and.
It's an Easter egg that I wanted to point out that I feel like a lot of people don't, is they imply a bunch of times that John, Laurie's kid, he resembles Michael a lot.
I never thought of that way.
I think at one point the security guard points out, he's like, "Dude, you got to comb your hair." And
Cool J.
He's got the same weird hair that Michael does, and he's like kind of like the same gait and everything. He's got like the same demeanor. That was something that I noticed on on a rewatch. That was pretty cool. But in terms of the post Scream stuff, for me, I always thought that was kind of subtle, actually, because you have a writer that's like the security guard who wants to write thrillers and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think at one point Scream 2 is playing on the
Yes.
TV.
Do you want to die tonight, CC?
Those are the only moments that I had noticed as far as that. So for me, that's not too distracting.
Well, also you actually like Scream, where me and Bill we're not fans of the Scream movies.
Point,
I like Scream too.
I love Scream.
Actually, what's funny that scene when they're watching Scream, that was originally supposed to be I married an actor remember Mike Myers, but they thought that would be a little bit too kind of weird, put Mike Myers the comedian, Michael Myers. I think it's funny.
I think it would have been funny if they're watching Halloween 3 on the TV.
Yeah,
that would have been a great full circle thing, because they had Halloween 1 on the TV and 3.
You're right about that. I remember that part.
That would have been great.
But I do want to point out that in this movie you see a very early role from Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yes,
that's right. Yeah. Does he get killed?
He does.
Yeah,
5 minutes in the
You also
he's the one that gets he gets stabbed in the face with
and you also
here's a fun
see
fact. During when she goes into the house and finds that the both teenage boys are dead, they're actually watching Plan 9 in the background.
Oh, that's cool.
In that opening scene, going back to the suburban sort of horror of the first one, it opens on this shot of a knife in the air with all these trees in the background and all these cute homes, and then it goes down into the pumpkin, and you realize, oh no, they're just carving a pumpkin.
Right. Good point.
So it's almost it's like a call. Okay, we're back to the suburbs. Freaky shit is gonna happen. That was kind of a cool way to set the stage.
So, any closing thoughts on Halloween H2O? Once again, I do like the film. I have some minor issues with it, but I do think it's a decent sequel, and honestly, I think this should have been the final Halloween movie.
I agree.
I have two more thoughts about it. My favorite part of the film is when she tells John, his girlfriend, to go out, go to the go across, call the police, an ambulance, and she's telling them to go off, and then she destroys the gate opener, because after all those years of hiding, being scared, she wants to finally face her. That is a great scene, because Michael Myers stalked her for once, she's stalking him for once.
That's a good point.
And I also like the ending, how where when you think that. When I tell you, screw you, I love Yellow Cool J, you're a cool guy, but screw you for stopping her for trying to finish what was done, because he's dead. He goes, no, he's not dead, and then then like when you see the ambulance take him away, you think there's gonna be another sequel after that. But she's like, no, don't even think about it. Don't even like go off with him because I'm gonna take him off and destroy him. That was a great ending. Was when I saw them like, yes, you killed him, Jamie. But as
literally becomes the stalker is a really great like sort of flip. But I feel like it would have been more effective if they'd have done it from Michael's point of view.
Right.
Like you had no idea where Laurie was going to come from or anything like that. Like,
right.
She kind of like sort of becomes Michael in that moment.
Somewhat.
If they'd have done it that way, it'd have been a little bit more effective.
That could have been interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So
true.
That's my only complaint about that whole sequence.
Right.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to what I think is the worst of the... Okay, John, calm down. You can have your opinion later on. Okay.
I'm trying to make it more comedic for the podcast.
I don't care about it. I want you to be quiet as I talk.
Okay.
Now we get to what I think is the worst of the Halloween franchise, Halloween Resurrection. John, take it away since you really
Okay,
hate it.
this is the worst one. This is like by far like my least favorite of the series. Like, I mean, I thought the opening scene was okay. Like, even though they killed off Jamie Lee Curtis's character, but I'm like, okay, we killed her off, but where the heck is Josh Hartnett? I thought maybe that would have been the whole point.
Oh yeah, they never mentioned.
They
Josh
never do.
Hartnett's
After that,
character.
it's just a regular like stereotype slasher film about these teenagers who are in Michael Myers' house and they're on a reality TV show. It's just it's crap.
I do want to point out though that I think this, as bad as this is, in a way it was almost a little ahead of its time with the whole internet angle, because at the time
Blair Witch Project,
the internet was not really as big as it is now.
No.
So I thought that was interesting. Maybe it was a little ahead of its time, but it's also a mind-numbingly stupid movie.
It was.
You brought up like the continuity from H2O. I think there was like a draft where like they explained that he went and killed John after he killed Laurie.
Yeah, I've heard that before too, but I don't know much about that.
Either that or like there was like an idea they were going to do like a comic book or a novel that was like going to merge the Thorn and the H2O continuities.
I think they made those, but I haven't read those though.
Yeah, there was some cool stuff. I think they actually did one where like Laurie like became the killer or something. It was pretty crazy. But in terms of this one, yeah, you're totally right about the technology angle. That's the most interesting thing about it, without a doubt. But as far as like, it's the usual dumb shit. Like they go to a house that they know like crazy shit has happened
But
at. You know.
there are moments in this movie where I'm seriously like, what is this supposed to be? Like the scene where, Buster Rhymes' character
Busta Rhymes.
is dressing up as Michael Myers to scare the other guys as part of the reality show, and the real Michael Myers is behind him, and he turns around going, "What are you doing, man? I'm Michael Myers!"
That actually was a little funny in some ways, even though it was like stupid. But at the same, it had a little like it was like kind of like a Yo Mama kind of thing in some ways. Like
there are points in this movie where like, okay, are they doing a parody of the Halloween movies?
Right.
Like, Bill, you've been silent here.
Yes, I agree. I mean, it starts off where you find out, right, that Michael Myers switched clothes with some guy, and I was like,
stupid.
right from there, I was like, all right, this is ridiculous. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, it's ludicrous.
Well,
It's such a bad. It's such a slap in the face of all those other movies that, and it's
she
like
chopped his fucking head off.
Exactly.
What happened was they were originally H2O was going to be the last one because they thought this is not a hit. We're gonna stop here, but because it was a hit and a success, they're like, okay, let's make more.
Yeah, horrible.
Yeah, it was bad.
I like the scene where he chopped Starbucks head off. That was fun.
Yeah.
Just because, like, I'm such a big Galactica fan, and I went back and rewatched it recently, and I'm like, oh shit, that's Starbucks in this movie. So that's like a cool Easter egg if you're into Galactica.
Also, yeah, the American Pie actor. What was his name from? He dated Tara Reid's character in American Pie. He was also in Rookie of the Year.
I always forget that guy's name.
You know what I'm talking about, though.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's like they were like taking teenagers or teen actors who were like very popular at the time, who were like on like shows like American Pie or whatever like was, I don't know. Go on.
I feel like there's not much else to add to it.
There is only one more thing.
What is it?
The only thing I did like in this film was the stuntman who played Michael Myers. He reminded me a little bit of Nick Castle, even though like he was not as good as Nick Castle, but I can tell he watched the first one over and over to mimic Nick Castle's walk.
Wasn't it the guy from the second one again?
No. Oh yeah, Rick Rosenthal directed this one.
He did.
That
You're
surprised me when I found that out. I was like, "Wow,
Maybe Carpenter had a bigger hand in Halloween 2 than we realized.
I guess when you're a Hollywood director, you're desperate to work no matter what you do, even if it's good or bad. That's what it could be.
The ending is good though. The ending is like a great like stock horror movie ending.
Okay, I mean, I don't know. It's a little too goofy for me with trick or treat, motherfucker.
That's like.
I kind of don't like how they ended the original series like that. Like, really, Busta Rhymes is going Bruce Lee on Michael Myers. Like,
and then, like, doesn't he? It's been a couple of years. Doesn't, like, when you see Michael Myers on the stretcher, Busta Rhymes' character is like, "Look at you, you're like fried chicken now," and I'm like,
I don't remember that. I haven't watched the film in a long time.
That's pretty bad.
They should have told him to dial it back.
I think they wanted to kill Busta Rhymes' character, but they just said, let him live.
Maybe if this was outright a parody of the Halloween movies,
that could be great.
Maybe it would have worked. But yeah, this is the worst of the franchise.
There's a deleted scene that's cut with Tyra Banks. She can't. I don't know how they got her in this film. Like, really, all the people in this film, you had to get Tyra Banks who can't act. But then again, what am I saying? It's a horror film, like a slasher horror films franchise sequel. So yeah,
okay,
let's go on. Sorry, I hate this movie a lot. So
now let's move on to Rob Zombie's 2007 remake of Halloween, one that's very contentious among horror fans. It's very polarizing. There are people who love it, people who hate it. Let me just get my opinions of this movie out of the way first. I loved this movie when I first saw it in the theaters, and I was like 15 at the time. And over the years, I still like the movie a lot, but for me, the first half is what really saves it.
Absolutely.
The first half, I think, is very strong. All the stuff with Michael Myers, the young Michael Myers in the mental institution, I think is very psychological and very well done. And I think had it been its own movie, the movie probably would have been a lot better received. I'll admit, the second half of the movie isn't very good, where it's outright remaking the first one. That part... Yeah, no, honestly, I found the characters in the second half to be really annoying, and, like, I would say, but for me, the first half saves the whole movie, even though the second half, I'll agree, is pretty bad. And I used to like this movie a lot, but over the years, my opinion of the movie has sort of decreased. I still don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be, but I kind of get why people don't like this one. But Bill, I know you're a big Rob Zombie fan.
Yes, I do like it, and I agree with what you had to say about it. I agree. I think the first half, and I wonder if in some ways Rob Zombie had to make concessions. So they basically said to him, "You could have half the movie to do what you want to do with the character, but the other half we want a stock Michael Myers. Give it to the audience what they like." So that's why I wonder if that's a movie. It's really a movie of two halves, where Rob Zombie got to do what he wanted to do in the early sequences, and then in the later ones he had to sort of toe the line, give the audience what they want, supposedly, Yeah. But I agree with you. I think the early sequences, and it's going to hear, and this is what frustrates me about horror fans sometimes, is that horror fans are constantly saying they hate retreads, they hate remakes, they hate reboots, they want to see something new. And then when somebody gives them something new, they hate it, they jump all over it, they go crazy on it, And I think that's
true.
what happens with this movie, because that's what Rob Zombie did. He gave us a different take on sort of why Michael Myers was the way he was. And people attacked it, it's the usual Rob Zombie, white trash, they gave and I was like, no, it was actually really compelling. And
one thing that annoys me, because of how poorly received this one was, I feel like a lot of people retroactively went back and started hating his first two movies. Right. It's like,
which I thought were great.
You people weren't saying that before the Halloween remake. It's sort of like with what happened with M. Night Shyamalan, where M. Night Shyamalan's movies really started going downhill, and then people started retroactively going back and saying Sixth Sense was bad, and Unbreakable was bad, and Signs was bad. It's like, you people weren't saying that back when those movies were out. Well, now, John, I know you're fidgeting right now. You really want to get your opinions out of the way, so why don't you give your opinions of this?
Okay, when I first saw this in high school, when I was a junior, I hated this film so much. It just made me want to watch the original over and over again, and forget about this remake. But I will admit, in recent years, watching it again, last year I watched with a friend of mine. It's not as bad as I remember. I mean, I don't really like this film or hate it. It's just not as good as I just don't really consider one of the best of the series, and it's okay. It's not the worst. It's definitely one of the worst, because this came out at a time when remakes were starting to be a thing of horror, where they were remaking classics, and it was really starting to make the horror genre go downhill. And some things I did yes, the first half was really good. The second half, that's where it loses me. I like the part where you see what happened to Michael Myers in the state penitentiary for years, and how Dr. Loomis is studying to find out who is this kid? Is he possessed, or is he pure evil, like you said?
Well, they kind of dropped the supernatural thing, and this one it's okay, it's just a psychopathic kid.
Yeah.
But they sort of interject this stuff about his coming from an abusive household and that sort of thing, which
that was interesting.
In a way, I could see people criticizing that because that kind of, in the original film, you get the idea that evil could come out of anything, where there's no explanation, whereas in this, Rob Zombie sort of made Michael Myers the textbook example of a serial killer.
Yeah.
But I still think the first half is very well done, and for me it saves the movie. But honestly, with the second half, I never wanted to see two little kids get killed more.
Right.
Than the two little kids playing the new Lindsay and the new Tommy Doyle. Like, okay, kill these fucking kids.
That's where it lost me right there, because the part, like, what was the actor's name who played Laura in this remake? Scott Taylor Compton, I think?
Scott Taylor Compton.
Thank you. That's where it lost me, because when I saw her, I'm like, oh my god, because when I saw her, I'm like, she's not as good as, Jamie Lee Curtis is better than her, because I was really
but Jamie Lee Curtis couldn't play her again.
I know, and because like when Michael Myers kills these characters, you have no sympathy. When they die, you're like, who cares?
Yeah. Chris.
Well, what I'll say is when this came out in 07, I was so excited for it because not so much because like it was a new director, it was a remake. It was just that like Halloween was back. That was kind of why I was excited. I was like, awesome! Like, the franchise keeps going. In retrospect, I still think it's pretty good. Like I love that it is a Rob Zombie movie. Like they did let somebody go full reign and make it their own. I do love the first half and everything. But what I want to bring up is like I feel like when he described it, he said it's basically like a remake with a prequel built into it. I feel like if they'd have maybe just let him go full prequel, like all Michael in the sanatorium,
That could have been great.
That would have been great.
Yeah, I agree.
That would have been great. Like
I always wanted that throughout the years. Like what happened to Michael Myers when he was in the state penitentiary for years, even though there were comics, but it would have been great to see a movie about that.
And not even necessarily do it in the continuity of the Carpenter ones.
Yeah.
Just kinda
No,
do
because
it-
that wouldn't make sense if it was in continuity
Like,
with
if
the
you
Carpenter
watched-
ones.
Have you watched Bates Motel?
No, I haven't yet, but I know Bates Motel is like a prequel, but it's like not really in continuity
No,
with the
it's not.
Hitchcock film.
Exactly. Like if it had been done like that, like okay, here's the story of how he got to be the shape, but not necessarily Carpenter's shape, more like a new take on it.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome. But I think it's good as a remake. I think it's
Yeah.
kind of
Fair enough.
I think honestly, I would rather have seen Rob Zombie do this than like Platinum Dunes do this or something.
Right.
And honestly, I feel like Rob Zombie would have been much better suited, though, to direct a Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake.
yeah.
His style is so much more suited to the whole look for Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Well, one of the things I think that he does brilliantly in this movie, and also he does he picks such great actors for the roles.
Yeah, I agree.
mean, think about the actors in this film, right? He has William Forsythe in it. He's got Brad Dourif in it.
love
He's got
Brad
Ken
Dourif.
Foray in it. He's got Malcolm McDowell in it. Like he picks like these great character actors, you know. And who else is going to give these guys roles? Like that's another thing that like annoys me about horror fans. It's like here's this guy giving all these great character actors, like and the horror actors or action or exploitation actors. Who else is giving these people roles? Oh, and actually, the person I was most impressed with in terms of their acting, Sherry Moon Zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually
was
liked
great.
her.
She
Yeah.
was really good. I know people like kind of trashed her in the
Devil's Rejects, I
Devil's
think.
Rejects
Yeah.
and House of a Thousand Corpses, but she was great in this. I thought she was really, really touching and very. You felt I felt a tremendous amount of sympathy for this woman who's trying to like raise her son. She doesn't know what to do, and she's caught in this bad marriage, and you know what I mean.
Actually,
Like,
it wasn't a marriage; it was more like an abusive boyfriend relationship.
Right.
I really was like, I agree. I really felt sympathy, but I was like really like sad when she like shot herself. I'm like, oh my god.
Right. But
Yeah.
she was. I thought she was great in it. I thought she was really good.
Yeah.
I do want to point out that there's actually a couple of cuts of this movie. There's the theatrical cut, there's a director's cut, and there's another version of the movie that I don't know if it's widely available, but there's a version of the movie with Udo Kier in it, where Udo Kier
Actually,
Another
I've seen
great
that.
actor,
I've seen
yeah.
that one.
yeah, where Udo Kier plays a psychologist at the hospital, and he's like somebody who's really campaigning to make sure Michael Myers stays locked up. And I don't know if that's in the director's cut that's out now, but I remember seeing it once, this cut with Udo Kier in it, and like it was a much different. It was a very different movie. So
Right.
there's
there's another an awesome actor like Udo Kier who's going to put Udo Kier in the movie. You know? And I loved Danny Trejo.
Oh,
was
Danny
great in this.
Trejo.
He
Oh,
was
yes,
great in
I
it.
forgot about
He's
that.
another guy that is just a
I was
great,
good to you, Mikey.
His death scene is so fucked up.
It
Yeah,
is.
absolutely.
He
Yeah.
literally like this is like a father figure to him, and Michael
Right.
just takes him out without any.
Yeah, but I think that
remorse.
really shows how much Michael's fallen as a human
Exactly.
being. And
Yeah.
one thing I do like is I kind of feel the movie's trying to say that yes, the kid was fucked up in the beginning, but I think they were trying to say that all these years of being institutionalized didn't do shit for him and just made it worse.
Right.
Made him more of a monster. I think, like, had they gone a different way in trying to help this kid, maybe things could have turned out differently. I think that's kind of another thing that Rob Zombie's trying to say with it. So I personally think it's a much better movie. It has its problems, don't get me wrong, but I think it's a much better movie than people give it credit for.
A little bit, like I said, I'm like hit or miss with it. It's okay. There are things I like, I don't like, but like I said, as far as like remakes goes, it's not the worst remake in my opinion.
Now let's move on to the sequel that Rob Zombie did to this, which Rob Zombie I know did not even want to do this, but
He didn't.
He was kind of pressured by the studio to sort of make this sequel. I'll admit, I've only seen this movie once. I don't really remember much of it, but I remember when I reviewed all the Halloween movies on my YouTube channel a while back, I gave this a fairly positive review, but I've never had the desire to watch it again. So, what do you guys think of Halloween 2 with Rob Zombie's version?
With this one, I mean, you guys are talking about how the first one has, like, okay, the first half is, like, Rob really getting to, like, stretch his legs with the franchise, and the second half is them telling him to do, like, a straight-up slasher film. This one is really them just letting him have free reign. He really kind of explores his own ideas with the franchise and about, like, psychologically, like, where both Michael and Laurie are, which I think is interesting. The idea that, like, all right, Laurie's got, like, the same kind of, like, mental issues that Michael does, but it's just not fully borne out yet. That was a cool idea. It was like a white horse, right?
Yes.
That was like the symbolism there. Yeah. That was really cool. They brought back Danielle. That's awesome. That's cool.
I asked her like once, like if she when they were like announcing like they were gonna bring back the Halloween franchise or redo it again. I asked her like did she ever like imagine in a million years like would you ever come back to this franchise? She said no, I never would have imagined because when she got the call she was shocked.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad she did because I love her in like the Hatchet movies.
Yeah, she's good in those.
She's
I like.
great.
Yeah.
She's really good. Well, yeah. I mean, I remember seeing again. Like, I was very excited to see this movie. And I heard the same thing that Rob Zombie really didn't want to do it. The studio pressured him. It was connected to his ability to make other movies down the line. So I always wondered if he purposely was kind of trying to tank the series, so he wouldn't. Because again, like, just imagine if this movie had been a big hit.
Yeah.
They would have said to him, "Come back and do a third one," and he would have been locked in. So I always wondered if, in some ways, he sort of purposely tanked it. But I also think he was. I think he was also playing out some kind of more avant-garde things that he was going to do with Lords of Salem.
Right. Yeah.
With the images of the white horse and the sort of and getting into the psychological kind of things like that. So I often wondered if he was sort of testing out. Playing out some things that maybe he was going to build on when he went to, and I think Lords of Salem is brilliant. I think it's his best movie. But yeah, it's a very hit or miss film with me. I think it's funny. I think some of the things he falls back on are kind of have almost become Rob Zombie tropes now in his movies that he kind of fell back on in the film. But there are parts of the movie that I really think are very interesting, and it is him trying to sort of stretch his legs.
Yeah.
In that way in the film. So I think it's a hit or miss film. I don't think it's as good as the first one. I also don't think that the performances in the second one are as good as the performances in the first one either, But again, I mean, I like his movies. I'm more than willing to watch a bad Rob Zombie movie more than, like you said, a Platinum Dunes type thing like that. I'd much rather see somebody who's like trying to do different things, and it might fail. I mean, right. I think most horror fans would look at the second film as a failure, right? But again, I mean, is it I'd rather see Rob Zombie's failure than like you said a Platinum Dunes success because that's going to be just bland by the numbers horror, and Rob Zombie really doesn't do that.
I do want to point out that I believe they are making another Halloween movie I think is coming out next year, which if it does, that would be the 40th anniversary of the original film. Sure. And I heard Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back. Is there truth to that?
Yeah, Jamie just announced that she'll do it. I think it was first announced because, what's the guy's name from Eastbound and Down?
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, he was in Alien Covenant.
Yeah, he's actually a huge horror fan.
Oh, Danny
McBride, who's also in Pineapple Express.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He's actually a huge horror fan. He's going to write it with the guy who directed Pineapple Express.
Oh, okay.
That would be interesting.
That guy is going to direct it.
Okay.
Jamie's going to be back. But the interesting thing that I heard was they're going to wipe out like all sequels that they made.
I heard that too.
So, even Halloween 2?
Even 2. So
would she even be his sister this time?
That's what I was going to bring up. I don't know.
I have a fact about that
he comes for her again like 40
that would be cool. That would be interesting.
That'd be such a great way to strip it back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I read that originally Carpenter, like when during Halloween, the making of the second Halloween film, the original, that he originally wanted the second film to take place like years down the road, like Laurie's older, maybe she has a kid or something. And Michael Myers is trying to track her down. That was
Stranger Calls. That'd be awesome.
yeah, that was originally an idea, but Carpenter decided to go with the sister idea instead.
Now, there was talks, and I actually heard Doug Bradley talking about this. Apparently, there was talks of a Michael Myers and Hellraiser crossover.
I would have loved that.
And I heard Doug Bradley talking about this, though. He said that apparently Clive Barker was going to write it and John Carpenter was going to direct it. But I don't know how
that sounds kind of apocryphal. I mean, just imagine how awesome. Like, that just would have been too awesome. Like, I can't imagine, like, that
But,
actually...
like, I mean, if that was a thing, because I heard Doug Bradley talking about this, because I saw Doug Bradley at a Q&A session about Hellraiser, he said that there was going to be, or according to him, and maybe this was just rumors that he heard, but apparently there was going to be a Hellraiser and Halloween crossover with Carpenter directing and Clive Barker writing.
That could have been great.
If that was going to be a thing, why the fuck didn't that happen?
The problem is, like, when it comes to like making these films, there's always like rights problems. It's not like when the Universal monsters, we had Frankenstein, Dracula, they were all owned by Universal, but now because you have Freddy, Jason, Michael, Pinhead, Chucky, they're all owned by different companies.
I also think it's very different kinds of horror.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I think Barker's horror is much more sort of
Definitely
sexual.
more cerebral.
Right,
than
exactly. You know, I mean, I would have loved. Obviously, I would have loved to have seen them try. I mean, I would have been brilliant. I mean, anything that Barker and Carpenter are going to be involved in is going to be great. Sure. But I think it would have been hard. I think it would have been. You know what I mean? Like, I think it would have been a hard sort of. Melding of those two very different sort of takes on horror.
Yeah.
Would they try to say that Thorn was a Cenobite or something?
Right, yeah, who knows,
Actually, I don't know if you ever know this fact. When they did Freddy vs. Jason, there's an alternate ending that was going to be shot where Pinhead pops up saying, "Gentlemen, what seems to be the problem?" But again, because they couldn't get the rights to Hellraiser, kind of...
That would be cool, yeah.
I would have loved it. I could see it in my head already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know there's been Halloween comic spin-offs and stuff like that, but any closing thoughts on the franchise overall?
I mean, it's classic. You can't deny it. The sequels are always fun. I say, like, if you want like a general idea of what these movies are all about, check out 1, 2, and then H2O.
Yeah,
that gives you like one solid story, and then if you decide you like it, kind of branch out, check out the other ones.
For me, it would have to be the first 3, including Halloween 3. After that, the sequels are very hit or miss after that. And as I said, the original Halloween, I will not deny, is a classic, but as a franchise overall, I like Friday the 13th better. I like Nightmare on Elm Street better. I'm talking about as a franchise, not original film-wise, but franchise-wise, I think Friday the 13th is better and Nightmare on Elm Street is better. I think those movies had more inventive sequels than Halloween did. I think after Part 3... the Halloween franchise just was very hit or miss, in my opinion.
We gotta do a Friday podcast.
That'd be great. I would love to do that.
But Bill, what is your overall opinion?
Well, I mean, if there had only been the first movie, you'd have to say that thank it just for putting John Carpenter on the map. Because if you think about it, I don't think there's been anybody recently who has had such an impact and has brought so many different themes and concerns and ideas to horror than John Carpenter. So you have to, I mean, again, regardless of the sequels and everything like that, just the fact that that's what really established him and that's what really made him a force, you know? I mean, think about it. I mean, outside of, I don't even think Alfred Hitchcock would put, I mean, what other director puts, like, John, would put their name above the title, like, John Carpenter's The Thing, John Carpenter's,
as much as I love John Carpenter, I've always wondered if that was hubris on his part,
Right. It could be. I mean, it could be. But again, I mean, I think it's totally, valid. I think it's totally credible for him to do that, because he is one of those people who just brought such, and what I think is awesome about him is that he brought sort of, a style, he brought style, but he also brought, like, his stories are really compelling, very interesting. They're not stupid. They don't talk down to the audience, and that's one of the things I think really sort of has killed horror, is that a lot of the people who make horror films, I think that horror audiences are stupid.
Yeah.
And we have to talk, and they have to be talked down to, and they have to sort of the lowest common denominator. And I've always felt like, and that's maybe one of the reasons why Carpenter isn't making films anymore, because, like, he won't do that. You know what I mean? He will not do that.
Well, look at Prince of Darkness. I mean, that's
brilliant.
You really have to, like, absorb that movie.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Carpenter film, because it's such a movie about ideas.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another Carpenter film that was so influenced by Nigel Neal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And then that goes to Season of the Witch, because it's both about like the union between the supernatural and the technological.
Right.
There's a lot of great themes there.
Right, absolutely, right.
You
That
don't see
science, right. That science and the supernatural are really just, they're not opposed. They're just two sides of the same coin. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
magic and the science are really the same thing. You know what I mean? And that's definitely right out of Neil. You know.
Definitely. Yeah.
I have to go soon. Here are my closing thoughts. I would say start with the classic and then gradually work your way up from the sequels up to the remake. This like to like see them all the way through to see and learn something about the franchise, like how like where it all started and how it like became like a big success and how like it had a big influence on other like film directors and also like other like slasher horror films. And that in my heart will always be like my favorite horror film no matter what. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah. That's about it. I have to go now. I'll see you guys.
Yeah.
All right, take you, John.
So that was our podcast / video on the Halloween franchise, and bye.